No matter how many people they have murdered, no matter how many kids they have crushed to death.
Okay, I need to watch a little bit of this. I'm so sorry. This seems like it could be epic. Is this the most recent debate they had? This was right after October 7th, so I feel like there's so much more information now. But
watch them passionately articulate their cases on this show, but never together. How does the war end? Will Israel face repercussions for the scale of its response to October the 7th? Has it committed war crimes? What is the future, if any, for Hamas, for Gaza, and for the prospects of a true Palestinian state? Most importantly, how do we get to peace? Well, I'm now joined by the author of The War in the West, Douglas Murray, and by Young Turks founder and Democratic presidential challenger, Cenk Uygur. Welcome to both of you. So I've interviewed you both a lot in this war, but not together. And Cenk, I know you felt the other night when you were debating with other people, it didn't really get into a debate, and I think that's fair enough. And what I'd like to today really is to be almost a referee, if you like, between you two to articulate your views and to see if we can reach any points of consensus. So in that spirit, let me start with you, Douglas. I think you're back in Israel. Is that right?
Yes, I'm in Israel tonight, yeah.
Today it was a sea of other stories have come out in the last few days, which have been concerning, I think. For anyone who, like me, believes that Israel has not just a moral duty to defend itself, but has a fundamental right to do so after what happened on October the 7th. And I've said that clearly from the start. It's always been, for me, the issue of proportionality. And it seems that in the last few days, there have been a number of incidents which really question whether Israel is being...
So remember, just for perspective, this is about a month and a half, I think, into the war, so...
precise as it says it is, or indiscriminate.
And we will go over that leaked Trump phone call, though, after this. I need to listen to that.
Cite the killing of the 3 hostages. I would cite the killing of the 2 women outside the Catholic Church. I would cite the President of the United States saying that they're using indiscriminate...
Is this Douglas Murray from the interview with Lex yesterday? Did he dye his hair? Stop dyeing it. I feel like it looks very gray white in the Lex interview. I don't know if he was dyeing his hair here or not, but...
Indiscriminate bombing, and so on. Do you, Doug?
Why are you resistant to pushing Asmongold explicitly on Twitter or on stream to do a convo? I don't know. I guess I should more. I think I let some criticism of me live too much in my head. Like because I'm coded very much online as like a super uber fucking debate bro, when I'm really not. But I don't know. I feel like pestering somebody on Twitter, like debate me, it just feels a little desperate. But I don't know. I feel like I don't that much, so maybe I should.
That they're using indiscriminate bombing.
But I can't talk to Asman now, though, because I'm still banned from Twitch, so he can't have me on his stream. And it would be, I don't think he's going to have like an off-stream conversation with me. That'd be a lot to ask.
Go on. Do you, Douglas, notwithstanding your full throttle support of Israel, does anything that's been happening make you think Israel needs to execute this war differently?
No, and I think that most of the people who think they know how to execute this war have never executed a war.
Ooh, classic Cenk smirk. Careful.
Indeed, most people who think they know how the IDF should be running this conflict have never been near a conflict. I'm in Israel tonight. I was in Gaza again yesterday. And the examples that you give, by the way, Piers, I don't see why they show any need to prosecute the war itself differently. I mean, just to take one of them, the first example you give, the absolutely tragic, awful shooting of these 3 hostages as they were coming out. But, you know, some of the spin that's been put on that in the world, apart from the glee, of course, that Israel's enemies can't help expressing, some of the spin on that is almost as if it shows the IDF is sort of so brutal that it even kills Hamas hostages who are...
I don't want to dig up the whole... Israel-Palestine shit again, okay? But, one, it is absolutely the case that people are so happy and horny for any Israeli soldiers or hostages dying. They love it. And they seethe like crazy whenever Israel manages to save any hostages. They love it when Israelis die, and they hate it when Israelis are saved from being hostages. That type of stuff that was happening online is super cringe and gross, and it absolutely was the case. Also, one of the reasons why I'm so specific in talking about like military operations and like is somebody doing something bad versus is like there some bad like operational command or whatever. The reason why it's important is because if you want to fix any of the problems, you have to be able to identify where they're coming from. And the majority of the problems that are happening are in my opinion, based on the totality of everything I've seen, are like either operational issues or Israel being like reckless. But when you start coming out here with the theory that Israel conducts itself in a way where they are intentionally killing their own fucking people because they're so bloodthirsty or whatever, like you destroy the ability to even have a real conversation about any of the topics. I've said this a million times, but it's just very, very, very frustrating. That whole everything about Israel-Palestine is very frustrating. But
Israeli. I just think this is another example of the international media and others just having this astounding lack of empathy for the Israeli people. Can you imagine what it was like for those soldiers who were in Gaza, knowing that at any point there are snipers, there are booby traps everywhere, people coming out of tunnels that they've built at British and American taxpayer expenses and attacking them? Can you imagine what it was like for the soldiers who...
Were you done with Middle East convos for a while then? I thought they would start again now that Trump will probably feel a lot of movement there. No. We're not going to be doing any foreign policy. Americans don't give a fuck about it, especially under Trump. It's just all epic memes.
Terrible moment made the life-changing mistake of shooting 3 people who turned out to be Hamas hostages.
But why would they, but Douglas, on that, why would they shoot anyone who was shirtless and waving an SOS flag? I mean, why would whoever...
I don't know how much info has been released at this point, but so I don't know what his response is going to be to this, but like, again, and I wish it was just acknowledged, and then you can have a conversation about it, right? The IDF is not perfect, and the IDF, every mistake they make isn't just a mistake. Sometimes legitimately, there are legitimate bad actors that are worth calling out, or actions that are so reckless that they're worth calling out, you know, either or. But there has to be an acknowledgement here when we talk about, like, you know, why are they shooting people with, you know, why are they shooting shirtless people? Well, I don't know. Does Hamas ever have people come out with white flags? Yes. Like, Hamas was literally, I think we actually saw this on drone footage once. Hamas will put recordings of people, like on a, not a cassette player, holy Christ, I'm old, like some kind of speaker, like speaking Hebrew in a room to get IDF soldiers to walk in, and the room will be booby-trapped, or there'll be somebody there waiting to shoot at them. Like, it's unhinged. This is not an environment that is conducive to distinguishing between civilians and enemy combatants, and it's intentionally set up to be like that. It's just unhinged, and there's never anybody on Cenk's side that is ever willing to even admit that's the reality on the ground. Now, again, to say for the 50 trillionth time, even if that is a reality on the ground, you still have an obligation to try your best to distinguish from one or the other. You need to have whatever policies or procedures you can to try to make these, to help your ability to distinguish. But, like, Jesus Christ.
Whether they were, whether they were Israeli hostages or whether they thought they were Palestinians, why would anyone shoot anyone who comes out like that? That's my point.
That'll be a matter for the inquiry into it.
Okay, I don't think they've even gotten a report from this yet, because it was probably really recent, I guess, when this was being shot.
But, you know, look, it's hardly as if they'd have wanted to have done that. What this demonstrates is, in this incredibly close conflict, in a heavily built-up area, with people coming out from all sides, firing, shooting, detonating, people make mistakes. Of course they do. That's just a human reality of war, horrible as it is. I don't think it shows in any way that Israel is prosecuting this war wrongly. As for the main issue of the war is to destroy Hamas. No Israeli of left or right or center believes anymore after October the 7th they can live beside Hamas. Hamas has been given the statelet of Gaza. It was given it in 2006, voted in, then killed their fellow Palestinians in a coup, killed Fatah rivals, and they've run the Gaza for almost 18 years now. And they've produced a new generation of people whose...
I don't know, that Blue John guy is a super Zionist in my kick chat. Hopefully he's not here right now. But this is the part where I feel like, and unfortunately Israel doesn't have that leader right now, or they don't want it right now. This is the part where, unironically, having a Lex Friedman type, we all just need to love each other type leader would have been so instrumental in Israel's, in this, I guess, like this challenge or this struggle, this time period in their existence. Because one feeling that I have, and I don't live there, okay, so maybe it's different on the ground, but one feeling I have is Israel does a really bad job sometimes, it seems like, of allowing Palestinians a choice between the good people and the bad people, in that the Palestinians that live in Israel, like, phenomenally, nothing really happened during October 7th. There was no third intifada. There was no uprising of all the 2 million Palestinians living in Israel. They didn't all come up to kill, Jewish people, but they all basically got collectively punished through Israelis not wanting to work with them anymore, not wanting to hire them out anymore. And I'm not even talking about like work permits for the West Bank. I mean, like Arabs that lived in Israel proper were like not getting called for jobs and shit and are suffering economic harm as a result. I wish that Israel would do a better job at distinguishing from the bad ones and the good ones, and I feel like they suck shit at that. But
main aim in life, it seems, according to their textbooks and their classes, is to regard Jews as enemies who should be killed. This is just an unbelievable waste, a waste of life on every side. But apart from anything else, a waste of those Palestinian lives, of children who grew up under Hamas's rule, if you can call it that, who have been indoctrinated into becoming sociopaths by a psychopathic terror organization, Hamas.
All right, Cenk, you've been listening to that. Is there anything that Douglas said that you agree with?
No, nothing.
Not even about the way Hamas has presided over Gaza in the last 18 years?
Yeah. So that's a weapon of mass distraction. It's Israel doing genocide on the Palestinians right now.
I'm sorry. That was.
You've been listening to that. Is there anything that Douglas said that you agree with?
No, nothing.
Not even about the way Hamas has presided over Gaza in the last 18 years.
Freaking epic.
Yeah. So that's
Friggin'
a weapon
epic.
of mass distraction. It's Israel doing genocide on the Palestinians right now. And there's IDF
Does it get any more
singing
epic than that?
And in video that the IDF has confirmed about how they're going to wipe out the seed of Amalek. That is a verse in the old Hebrew Bible that talks about exterminating Amalek. So they're talking.
One thing that's very disappointing, and Cenk should know better, okay? I think he's Muslim. No, he's probably culturally Muslim. They always are. Anybody that wants to just like take one fucking quote out of a thing to try to pretend that this is like a huge indictment on a religion, or like, I'm pretty sure Amalek could mean different things. I don't think it has to mean like Arab or Palestinian or subhuman way to whatever the enemy, like it's a cringe way to make these fucking arguments, but whatever.
Talking about genocide against Palestinians. Benjamin Netanyahu has also talked about wiping out Amalek. These are open calls
to
for
genocide.
What I find stunning, Douglas mentioned stunning lack of empathy. There's 20,000 dead people in Palestine right now in Gaza. Over 8,000 of them are children. When 36 Israeli children were killed by Hamas, the world cried out, and I was brokenhearted over it. 36 poor kids dead in Israel. Now there's over 8,000 dead kids in Gaza. You want to talk about a stunning...
Like, I'm curious if he understands. Like, I don't know if there's intentional propaganda or if he just bought into the talking points. Because good propaganda isn't something that has to be done intentionally. It gets other people to repeat it as well, right? That's the point of doing good propaganda. But nobody thinks about numbers like this. Like, you just don't. Nobody's comparing, like, you're comparing the types of actions. Like, if 100 people die in a terrorist attack, like an actual, just like a full-on terrorist attack, nobody's thinking like, okay, well, when we do our attack, we can only get 100 as well, and that's like the same type of 100. No, people killed during a terrorist attack are not viewed the same as people killed during combat operations, regardless of if you think the combat operations are over the top or not. But, whatever.
Lack of empathy. 6,400 women slaughtered in Gaza. You want to talk about terrorism? They're dropping unguided bombs, 2,000-pound bombs. Every one of those bombs is an act of terrorism. And the stunning lack of empathy towards Palestinian lives is disgusting. But I want to be clear, it is not shared by all Israelis. The dad of one of the hostages who was killed went on Israeli television and said, stop killing them. And he didn't mean the hostages. He meant the Palestinians.
All right, but Cenk, let me just jump in. But before I go back to Douglas for a response to this.
Let me reply to that, Piers.
Yeah, I will let you reply to that. On this issue of genocide, do you accept, though, that Hamas's whole raison d'etre when it comes to Israel is genocide. They want to eradicate Israel and kill as many Jews as they can. I mean,
Like, that's an easy yes. And you should say yes. If you care about the Palestinians, if you care about Arabs, if you care about brown people, yes, Hamas is not a good represent. And one of the reasons as well why it's good to point this out is then you can also point the finger back at Israel. Hamas is a bad representation of the Palestinian people, which is why Israel should be working more with the Palestinian Authority, more with some other Palestinian body to give the Palestinian people somebody good to represent them. Like, Israel has a shared goal in that as well.
made no secret of this.
Yeah. So this is really important. So I have no sympathy for Hamas. So I'm not interested in defending Hamas.
Also, just as for a quick military thing, whether or not a munition is guided or unguided doesn't matter. When you talk about like a guided munition, I think the implication there, or explicitly, a guided munition is one that has secondary surfaces for navigation once it's been launched. But for comparison, a bullet is unguided, right? Bullets are dumb. Bullets are unguided, dumb things. But that doesn't mean that they're not precision targeted, right? Bombs that are dropped without secondary guidance systems can still be dropped in an incredibly precise manner. It's stupid to say that. People just like say, oh, they're unguided. So they're acting like they're trying to sell the indiscriminate argument, which is stupid. But
I think that's nothing but a distraction. Because right now they're not fighting Hamas. They're just killing Palestinian
Well, they're
civilians.
also killing Hamas terrorists. They are. I mean, they're killing thousands of them.
Barely. No, wait a minute. Barely. But let's go to your main point, okay? So the main point is, well, Hamas threatens X, Y, and Z and has killed 1,200 people on October 7th. So that is why we have to all worry about what Hamas might do
I don't think it's simple as that.
Hold on, let me finish the point. Let me finish the point. At what they might do if they had infinite power, the kind of power that Israel has. Meanwhile, Israel is actually doing the genocide, is actually preventing.
like, it's just, it feels so boring. Like, it's just such an uneducated take on everything having to do with the Middle East. With so many people around you, so many Arab, but I guess maybe because they're Arabs, nobody gives a fuck about brown people. So many people around you being slaughtered by the hundreds of thousands sometimes, whether we're talking about actual wars like between Iran and Iraq, or what's going on or has been going on for the last fucking century in Yemen, or everything happening in Syria with Assad. But no, the real genocide of Arabs is the IDF to fucking Palestinians. Okay, dude.
A Palestinian state and saying you are not allowed to exist, and if you dare try to exist, we'll kill 20,000 of your children and women.
All right, Douglas, respond to that.
I like that Cenk sounds the same as he does in our debates when we debated these topics.
Several things. First of all, anyone who uses the term genocide in this context simply doesn't know what they're talking about, or is a malevolent actor. I don't know if Mr. Uyghur's traveled at all in his life, how far he's traveled, how many conflicts he's seen, but I'd have guessed none. And you clearly know nothing about this particular conflict, and you've obviously seen none of it. The genocide that you describe is such a smear and a libel against the Jewish state.
Blood libel, uh-oh.
Israel wanted to commit genocide. I'm sure it could, but it doesn't. It doesn't remotely want to. And people like you and other pro-Palestinian propagandists have spent years.
We get to hear a lot of your anti-Israel arguments. What are your issues with Netanyahu? I think Netanyahu is exclusively viewing... I think that the dream from a lot of Zionists is that if they just keep ignoring the Palestinian problem, they can get everything they want. And eventually the Palestinians will, like one day, a huge gust of wind will come by and blow them all away. And then Israel won't have to think about it or deal with it anymore. That feels like... And it feels like Netanyahu is very much like of that school of thought, that eventually they'll all just get bored and leave. And I think that's very fucking stupid and short-sighted. But what do I know?
He is claiming that Israel is committing genocide in the Gaza. By the way, the weirdest thing about this claim is that the population of the Gaza has grown by 1 million in the last...
Can you explain what blood libel is? No, I looked it up. I should know this because I think it's a big Nazi anti-Semitic thing or whatever. Isn't it like when you accuse Jews of doing something... fuck, hold on. Let me find this. An accusation that Jewish people used the blood of Christians in religious rituals, especially in the preparation of Passover bread that was perpetuated throughout the Middle Ages and sporadically until the early 20th century. I think when you accuse somebody of blood libel, you're saying that Jews are like inherently bloodthirsty monsters that murder for fun or something like that. I think is what blood libel is considered. But it could also have that more weird anti-Semitic thing if like you're talking about it in an on-war context, maybe? I don't know.
Last 15 or so years. So if Israel was trying to carry out a genocide, it's either the worst perpetrator of genocide ever or uniquely poor at performing that task. None of the stats support that ridiculous claim. And it's such a weird smear and a libel of Israel. Secondly, of course, you've just rattled off Hamas figures, as everyone of your kind always does. Thirdly, you said that the world cried a world...
I love that Cenk fucking... like... Well, I guess actually Douglas Murray could be racist, who knows, but...
Pride, you said the people like you who cover for the Palestinian extremists. Thirdly, you said that the world cried out for the 36 Israeli dead children. No, they didn't, and you know that very well. You know that very well. If you put up a poster to a missing dog in any Western city, that poster stays up. In city after city in America, posters of abducted Jewish children, including a 10-month-old baby.
This is like, it's just fucking unhinged. I don't know where, well, I do know where, I guess it's because they get support in the world. The idea that people supported that, of people taking down Jewish hostage posters or whatever, is just fucking crazy unhinged. And that was really popular for all. Do you remember that one Greek restaurant where somebody walked by and they tore their flag down because it was blue? They thought it was an Israeli flag. Jesus.
Baby were put up and were ripped down by people who have been indoctrinated into hate of Jews. Nobody would rip down the poster of a missing dog, but from Dublin to Berkeley, they ripped down posters of abducted Jewish children. So no, I don't think there was very much care for that around the world.
Let me put this to you, Douglas.
Let me make two other very quick points. Firstly, you said what Hamas might do, as if it was some kind of hypothetical.
Yeah.
Hamas showed what they do, what they want to do. It showed it on October the 7th, and its leadership, as I'm sure you very well know, said that they would like to repeat that again and again until they have got rid of every Jew. So, I don't know. I would trust Hamas's word on that rather than your interpretation of what you think they mean when they say that, and your generous interpretation of what you think that means. And finally, as for preventing a Palestinian state, it is nonsense.
To your point, one of the things you're best at is walking people through something logically in a way they feel confident they've come to it to, not spoken down to. The Kamala constructive feedback / debate comes to mind. Wait, when? Or what debate is that in particular? Even the H3 audience said of your explanation versus Sans, how easy it was to understand. I don't know which the debate you're referring to there.
That the Israelis have prevented a Palestinian state. They gave the Gazans a Palestinian state in 2005. They gave them a Palestinian state in 2005 when every Jewish person was ripped from their homes in the Gaza by IDF soldiers. And the Palestinian people...
It was on Raj? You mean about the... You mean about like whether or not... like how racism can't be perpetrated from one class to another? Okay. But that's not the Kamala constructive feedback debate, so I don't know why. Oh, even the H3 audience said of your explanation was not... That explanation you were talking about was on the show, not the Kamala explanation. Okay, all right, gotcha.
People were given a state, and what did they do? They voted in Hamas, who then killed their fellow Palestinians, never had another election, and used all the billions of dollars of taxpayer funds from the US, UK, and Europe to build terror tunnels and to enrich themselves so they could live the life of luxury in Qatar. Again and again, the reason there is not a Palestinian state...
It is crazy to me. It's not crazy to me. I'm sorry, I lied. It is annoying to me that they're just... It's utter crickets when it comes to criticism for Hamas in the West. Nobody has anything to say. You want to talk, like, what is the unemployment rate in the Gaza Strip? You don't actually know. People will cite these really high numbers, but we don't know how many of those people are just building tunnels all day for Hamas, right? You actually have no idea what the actual unemployment figures are, or how much cement, how much stuff was stolen from the people of Gaza in order to, in order to build more tunnels to fight out of. It's very, very, very fucking annoying. But then again, it's going to be hard to understand this if you're just speaking about this from like Palestinian propaganda tools, because, well, I don't know, why would they do that? Or why, maybe it's just Kogat and Israel stealing the aid, or maybe they're not as rich as the Western world claims they are. They're not actually getting money. They're all starving. The reason why is because the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and in general don't want to build a successful state without having all of Israel. That's still like the agreement point in their mind. Why would you start building a successful state and then show that you can? Because if you do that, all you've done is you've basically just all you've done is justify the argument that you don't deserve a full country anyway. You can just settle with what you have and you're fine there, you know?
State is because the Palestinian leadership doesn't want one.
Okay, Douglas,
didn't want one in 1947.
Right,
it preferred war, and it doesn't want one now.
Douglas, let me put one point to you raised by Queen Rania of Jordan in a new piece for, I think it was the Washington Post. In just over 2 months, she said Israel's turned Gaza into a hellscape. At least 8,000 children have died, more than the death tolls of Pearl Harbor, September the 11th, and Hurricane Katrina combined. These are
We're just grabbing every single random
and horrendous numbers of children being killed. Do you not have any qualms about the number of children being killed? I mean, does it not suggest that Israel?
I want to hear Queen Rania talking about this as much as I want to hear Queen Camilla or Meghan Markle. I mean, it's pathetic. Queen Rania is holding on to her own position in Jordan. The only piece of advice she has for anyone is how to marry a king. Queen Rania herself is just playing a very nasty political game. If she cared at all, and I would pose this to all the states in the region, if Jordan cared at all for the Palestinian people, they would take them in.
All right,
they would
Cenk,
take them in.
Let me get Cenk.
Oof, like that's never happening. For the reason I just said before, to take in the Palestinian people is essentially to affirm Israel's statement that they will never have a state. They don't have a right to a state. They're never getting one. Like, just go live somewhere else. Like, that's the whole reason why on the Arab side, people are so scared of Palestinians ever getting kicked out of the Gaza Strip, is because if they get kicked out and they can't go back, then they've lost it, you know? With respect to Steven Pinker, I think he's one of the greatest intellectuals today, one of the few liberals that's able to argue about or against leftists. Short video arguing about revolutions and violence. Maybe.
Want them. If the Egyptians wanted them, they'd take them in, but they don't. Do you know why? Because every country that takes in the Palestinians gets terror. It happened in Egypt, it happened in Jordan, it happened in Syria, it happened in Lebanon, it happened in Tunisia.
So this is true, but it's not why they won't take in Palestinians today. This is true, but it has nothing to do with taking in Palestinians today. Yeah. Because if that was the case, Jordan right now, 2/3 of the people living in Jordan are Palestinian, and they don't have huge terrorist problems. That environment that he was talking about, that environment only existed prior when terrorist attacks from other territories were possible because these states were still warring with each other. In Jordan, Fedayeen, and in Syria, Fedayeen, and in Egypt, Fedayeen, which are like Palestinian, I guess like commandos, would come in and try to do terror attacks, and then Israel would retaliate, and they would retaliate by attacking sometimes into Jordan or sometimes into Syria or Lebanon or Egypt. But this doesn't happen anymore. It wouldn't happen anymore. It's because they want the Palestinians to have a state. That's the reason why. Although historically that was true 30 or 40 years ago. It's not true anymore, I don't think. It's not.
On and on. That's why these people don't really care about their fellow Muslims. They just care about hating Jews.
All right, Cenk, your response.
Is Douglas Murray Jewish? Just curious. Not that would influence me thinking whether or not he's taking this more personally or not. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so...
Do you think the current Palestinian population, if relocated, wouldn't commit acts of terror? I don't actually know. I'm not sure. It's hard to know anything about the current Palestinian population. One is because they're all super young. Like half of them are over, or half of them are under the age of 18. So, and then two, they have been hardcore propagandized over the past 2 decades by Hamas. But then three, because they have Hamas, it's hard to tell what the people actually think. One of the nice things about democracies is you can keep track of public opinion by how they vote. We don't really know what the fuck the people in Gaza think, you know?
Care about hating Jews.
All right, Cenk, your response.
Yeah, so you asked if he cared about 8,000 dead babies, and his answer was no. Queen Rania bothers me, so complete non-answer, because he doesn't care. He doesn't think that Palestinians' lives are worth anything.
Nice.
He just called them all terrorists.
Well, it's nice you can put that
and this is what they always do.
There you go.
So hold on, I let you talk for a long time, so why don't you shut up for a second?
Ooh.
So we've got all of these dead babies. We've got all of these dead babies that this monster doesn't care about. He says keep bombing them. A former intelligence officer said in the Israeli press they're using AI.
The Big Daddy. Skellerass, thank you for the... Oh, does it not say how many viewers somebody hosts you with? Why is this white on white? Am I the only one whose monitor or YouTube is colored this way? Like in YouTube, do you guys all see it like this? What the fuck? Am I just old? Am I supposed to be able to read this easily? Jesus Christ.
In a program called The Gospel, where he said it's basically a mass assassination factory. And we could all see it with our own eyes. And you can do all the propaganda you want.
Propaganda.
No one believes your nonsense. We see all the dead women. We see all the dead children. Now Israel has killed 20 times the number of civilians that Hamas killed. So would I want Hamas in charge of Israel? Never. I don't trust them. And I don't believe that they would be benign. So all of this propaganda about, people don't mind Hamas. No, we mind Hamas. We terribly what happened on October 7th. And I've now shown you different Israelis that have said that it's a problem. And I want peace and security for both Israel and Palestine. And this does not get Israel any peace or security. But when you ask the other side, do you mind tens of thousands of civilians that have been murdered, incinerated alive, body parts picked out of rubble, little babies killed over and over again, in what is even the Israeli Prime Minister is referring to as Amalek, meaning an extermination of the Palestinian people. And I must clarify the difference between a genocide and a Holocaust. A genocide is when you target a specific people and kill a lot of civilians. Srebrenica, where 6,000 people were killed, was considered a genocide. So it doesn't mean you try to murder every single person in that
Cenk, let me ask
race.
You.
That is a Holocaust.
Okay, let me reply.
Is there a formal definition for a Holocaust? I thought the Holocaust was just one particular genocide. I could be wrong. I've just never heard that before.
Wait, one second. Before I go to Douglas, Cenk, one question. You want to get rid of Hamas too, as does Douglas, as do I. If you don't do it the way that Israel is currently doing it, given that they live amongst the population, how else do you do it?
Yeah, there's an excellent way to do it, and there's the right way.
Actually, cannot believe Destiny thought Egypt and Jordan wouldn't take in Palestinians because they want a Palestinian state in Gaza. Absolutely delusional. What?
Way to do it. So let me explain. So war, this guy talks about, I love war. I go to all the conflict zones. So by watching it and rooting on for more death, I know something about conflict. You know nothing.
Ooh,
so here's what reality is. War
nothing.
gets you more war. But peace actually works. So when Israel did a peace deal with Egypt, not only were the Egyptians safe, but the Israelis became safer. That peace deal has held for decade after decade. So how do you do a peace deal in this case? What you do is you do the two-state solution now, and you do it with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. And if you then have
the problem with this, though, is that Egypt is a full government to negotiate with. The Palestinians don't really have a representation, and the give is a lot harder for Israel against the Palestinians than it was for Egypt. For Egypt, they just had to get back to Sinai, but they don't give a fuck. It's a giant-ass desert. No one cares. For the Palestinians, nobody even knows what the Palestinians want. Nobody even wanted this two-state solution, even though I think it's the best idea as well, but nobody there wants it. Nobody wants a two-state where both sides are treated equally. Nobody wants that right now. So I don't know how you can screech and scream that it's the only solution when the parties involved don't seem to even advocate for it, but whatever.
Palestinian state, the Palestinian Authority.
Are you watching this old interview? I just heard Cenk is super ass-pained. I just thought it'd be funny to watch.
Would have the credibility to drive out Hamas from Gaza. That is a realistic plan for both peace, security for Israel and the Palestinians, and driving out Hamas.
I wish we would talk about more. So you want the PA to drive out Hamas? What does that look like to you? Are they going to go to war? Israel's going to have to help them. No. Aren't you literally just setting up the exact same scenario that you are complaining about right now? What exactly are you talking about?
The idea that you're going to kill 20,000 more civilians, 200,000 more civilians in Gaza, and it's going to drive out Hamas.
Okay, let Douglas
let me answer that.
Let Douglas respond to that.
First of all,
let Dougie at it.
First of all, I mean, your other guest, I mean, I don't know what kind of a creature he is. He's a kind of low-grade thug, as far as I can see. He's listened to nothing I've said.
Yeah, I know, because I'm Muslim. That's what you call all Muslims.
I'll tell you. No, it's
Racist.
not that at all. It's not that at all. I just think that I think you're just a very low-rent racist. But anyway, let me just get on to it. You say, first of all, I don't care about the death of Palestinian children. Yes, I do care. I care very deeply about it. But I also know that the responsibility for their deaths lies on Hamas, which has misgoverned their society for the last 16 years, and now has been leading the country into being in a war with Israel. So yes, it's on Hamas this. As for seeing wars, by the way, I just mentioned about seeing wars because as far as I can see, you're very ill-traveled as well as rather ill-lettered and ill-spoken. And I mentioned that I cover wars and go to wars because I happen to think myself that it's worth seeing things with your own eyes, including things that you don't particularly like, but you report the truth. I don't know if you ever even leave your own bedroom. And I can tell already that you don't because you've already said something that demonstrates you know nothing about this conflict. You have just demonstrated it in the following terms. You said that this is why we need to push for a two-state solution and give legitimacy to the Palestinian Authority. I'll tell you something you don't know, because I guess you...
Oh, that what? Palestinians don't actually like the Palestinian Authority that much? Even the ones at the West Bank? Because that's kind of true. I wonder if he's going to bring that up.
Spent no time in the West Bank, have you? I'll tell you something you probably don't know. The Palestinian Authority, Fatah, celebrated the 7th of October massacres. I'll give you another fact, which...
Oh. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Also, calling the Palestinian Authority Fatah is not strictly correct, but doesn't matter that much, but...
demonstrates you know nothing about this and clearly haven't ever visited any Palestinians in the West Bank as I have. If there was an election tomorrow in the West
guy's visited
Bank,
everybody.
The reason why there isn't one is because if there was an election tomorrow in the West Bank, Hamas would win. So your idea of a two-state solution, I'm afraid you are so out of date and you really should leave your bedroom. Because in this region, nobody thinks that there is a two-state solution on the table because there is not a viable negotiating partner. But I just want to make one other main
bedrooms.
point. You have gone on and on tonight, throwing accusations out against the Jewish state, against me. It's the sort of thing you do. I know you're a sort of online pugilist and think you can run for office, and good luck with that. But I'd just like to point out that you only really get animated if the Jews are involved. And I can tell that for the following reason. I mean, your surname's Uygur, isn't it? 1 million Uyghur Muslims in China have been put in concentration camps in the last decade. And people of your ilk never really care about that, do you? Because it's not the Jews doing it, it's the Chinese Communist Party. At the moment, 1 million people who are in Pakistan at the moment, who are your fellow Muslims and who happen to be Afghan, and I don't think you care about them, do you? 1 million Afghans are currently being forcibly deported from Pakistan to Afghanistan. You don't care about that. You're not riled up about that. You're not riled up about what the Janjaweed are currently doing in Sudan, where thousands and thousands of people are being attacked by the Islamist militia there. You don't care about any of that. You get exercised and you rile up what little base you have of malcontents because you're riled up when the Jews do anything.
All right,
it's
Cenk.
perfectly obvious.
Okay. Cenk, your response.
Dang.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, my last name is Uygur. We're named after the Uyghur Turks in China. And have we talked about that on the Young Turks?
I thought you'd spoken up then.
Yes, we've talked about it endlessly, but you don't know that, and you don't watch the show.
Shame
you just
nobody
make
watches
things
your
up.
show.
So,
nobody does watch your show.
Yeah, well, okay, again, you're interrupting me when I was kind enough to let you go on with your mad ramblings. So how nobody watches the show, we have 5 billion views a year. I don't know what piddling outfit you're on, or what little Substack or whatever the hell you write on. So the reason we're incredibly popular is we fight for all. We fight for shut up. We fight for all innocent civilians. So yes, we've covered all of those conflicts. Yes, I'm against fundamentalist Islam, no question about it. I'm against fundamentalist religions of all kind. In terms of every right-wing supporter of Israel, their only tactic is, hey, don't look at the 8,000 murdered children. Don't look at the 6,400 murdered women. Don't look at the fact that all the hospitals in northern Gaza have been shut down. Don't look at the fact that 4 out of 5 people in northern Gaza are starving right now, and half the people in southern Gaza are starving. Instead, anti-Semite. Now, wait a minute. I just told you how much I want peace and security for Israel, how much I hated what happened on October 7th. What you don't know is I started the Young Turks with 2 Jewish friends. And so the whole program is both Jews and Muslims. You know nothing. You know nothing. I have Jewish family and friends. Why in the world, God, as they go to Israel, I want them to be safe, okay? So I have shown empathy for all civilians throughout everything I have ever done. But civilian. All you have is hatred. Oh, he's an anti-Semite. Kill the Muslims. Kill the Palestinians. And once we kill them, by the way, we'll blame them for it. Israel had to murder all those babies in Palestine because Hamas made us do it. Then why are you listening to Hamas? Why are you letting Hamas drive your agenda? Well, you don't have to kill.
If you had a debate and had to pick either one of these two for your partner on foreign policy, who are you choosing? I don't want to hedge my one schizo emailer, although that guy's Arab or Muslim. I don't know if one or the other. He hates Douglas Murray. And I've heard that Douglas Murray is really unhinged when it comes to Arabs or Muslims. I don't know if that's true or not, but listening to him on Lex Friedman last night, I was very impressed because it seems like he knows a lot of stuff, like what I would expect an educated journalist type person to know. So I'm taking Douglas Murray 1,000,000,000%.
Those civilians, it's a mass assassination factory.
Assassination factory.
9 weeks into this war, 20,000 people, according to the Hamas-run health authority, but the numbers have not been questioned by other official bodies. 20,000 people so far have died on the Palestinian side. And it is estimated from the IDF that they say they've killed 7,000 or so Hamas terrorists. That number's not been verified. But if you take that as being accurate, that's 20% of the estimated number of Hamas terrorists that exist. Therefore, there's 80% still to be eliminated, which at this rate would take another 8 to 10 months and would lead to potentially several 100,000 civilians being killed and pretty much all of Gaza being obliterated with nowhere for the 2.
LOL, last try benevolent streamer. If someone listens to your call with Hassan on Kamala and criminal justice, they'd come away with a different view of your debate necrophilia, whether it was for a friend, just separate from dipshits on stream. You're good at that. It won me over. How can I maximize that destiny out into the world? How can DGG help? Oh, maybe. Wait, are you a friend of mine that is also talking in chat? Because I had another friend, I think, who listened to that debate a couple days ago. Usually whenever people listen to old debates, it's hard because it's hard to get content in front of them. When people listen to old debates that other people have summarized, I feel like they usually come away fairly surprised because, yeah, Hassan will describe that debate or me as like totally different, where if you actually watch it, I'm actually like pretty calm. I'm like super patient. He's being super bad faith and mega retarded. And it's just funny how he'll like summarize, I guess, that conversation or conversations around it. But yeah.
2 million who've been displaced to go back to. So my question for you is, if this is the game plan by Israel to finish Hamas right to the last terrorist, what is left after that? They talk about the day after the war. What does it look like? Who runs Gaza? Where do these people go back to live? In other words, what actually happens?
You're at Melina's place too, right? You couldn't scream? Yeah, but I wouldn't have screamed anyway, because back then me and his son were friends. It's not like I'm going to go like ultra fucking hard. He just has to present me as having gone ultra fucking hard, because otherwise he just comes off as unhinged, which he was.
If Israel is successful, however long it takes, in eliminating Hamas?
Well, first of all, I just have to add, you quite rightly said it, Piers, that the figures you gave are Hamas figures, and we do have to treat them with more than a grain of salt. As for, again, my counterpart here goes on about the deliberate genocide of children and women. I mean, I know, and this is the sort of thing I think you do. You sort of claim that there are bombs being deliberately dropped on children and old women. Why would Israel want to drop bombs deliberately on children or old?
The N-word manifesto is also like that. If you watch it, it's almost nothing to do with the word, but now it's, oh yeah. Fuck, I saw even on H3H3 they talked about that. That piece of propaganda is spread. I also kind of played into it a bit as well. But that was back at a time when I thought you could be a little bit more memey. I didn't realize, or I couldn't have foreseen how powerful Hassan would become to write the narrative on me, I guess, yeah.
Old women. I mean, it's just a shame you don't get out and see anything. The Israelis do an incredibly careful campaign before bombings to try to make sure that civilians are warned to leave areas that are about to be attacked. Everybody knows that. Everybody in the region knows that. It's a shame that that fact hasn't got to you.
As it happens,
Jeez.
the whole question you raised, Piers, is a very, very complex one. I don't have the answer, and I don't believe anyone does have the answer about the day after. Nobody wants to rule the Gaza. The Israelis used to be in charge of it. They left, as I say, in 2005 to the last Jew. They were all taken out of their houses. Israel doesn't want to rule the Gaza. Now, who can rule the Gaza? Hamas.
Why does he keep calling it the Gaza? The Gaza Strip or rule Gaza? I don't know. Is that a thing?
Clearly cannot, because they set it up as a terrorist statelet. Can some Fatah-like authority be encouraged to take it over? Possibly. Possibly. I spoke to one Palestinian analyst earlier today who said that actually, just as I said earlier, that an election in the West Bank today would elect Hamas, perhaps an election tomorrow, if it was to happen, and I'm not sure if that's going to...
Same as the Ukraine, no? No. The Ukraine is an intentional, known dog whistle, because I believe Ukraine means like, what is it? I've said this like a million times. I always forget. Like the front lens or something. And when you call it the Ukraine... or the borderlands, yeah. I think you're implying that, like the dog whistle, I think is just that Ukraine is just, it's this to Russia. It's like the borderlands. And that's how Russia sees it and views it. You call it like the Ukraine. You're basically reducing it to like an ordinary noun kind of. But the Gaza is not a dog whistle for anything. I've just never heard that before. Maybe he just says it. It's a habit of speech for him.
Be a good idea. Might even actually elect not Hamas Palestinians to power, but it's a heck of a risk. The reality is that the only solution to Gaza that anyone can see, I can imagine, is that it has to be a solution which involves multiple players in the region. The question of the Gaza is a very complex question. It used to be ruled by Egypt, used to be run by Egypt. Can Egypt have a role? In my view, it has to have a role. Can Jordan be involved? In my view, yes, it has to have a role. Can the Gulf states, including those who've been pumping money to Hamas, have some kind of role? Yes, I would hope so. It cannot be Israel's task alone to deal with the question of the Gaza. It has to involve multiple players in the region, but there's one kicker to that, which is that none of the Arabs in this region that I'm sitting in care a jot about the Palestinians. They really do not. If they did, for all of their talk, they would have done something. They would not have decided...
When you talk about the issues like this, he's talking about Palestine like Russian propagandists talk about Ukraine. If you cared about Ukrainian lives, then you would just stop with the war. You would stop fighting. Again, the Palestinian people, the issue isn't just whether or not people are dying. It's, do they have a right to their own autonomous country that exists where Israel is today? That's the issue.
To keep the Palestinians out.
The frustrating thing about Cenk in these debates, maybe I should be harsher in my language about him or my critiques of him. My biggest frustration about Cenk in these debates is I don't know if Cenk ever has actual debates. And it's frustrating because people will see this and then they're like, oh, this is why debate isn't productive. It's because it's just people screaming at each other. I don't know does Cenk ever actually debate on any argument or point ever? Or is it always just pearl clutching and virtue signaling? Because it always sounds like he's just like, this is the worst thing. You just want to see children die. Yeah, fucking murderer. You're a fucking murderer. I just want to murder everybody. Like, it seems like that's what he's always done for these Israel-Palestine debates. It's a little unhinged.
They have in country after country. Queen Rania can invite the Gazans into Jordan. She can invite the West Bank Palestinians into Jordan. She doesn't. Egypt could open its border with Gaza. It doesn't. The Egyptian border with Gaza is firmer and more closely locked than the Israeli ones. There are Gazan workers who, until the atrocities of October the 7th, every day were going through the Eretz crossings and others to work in Israel and to earn a decent living. Were there workers going in daily into Egypt? No, because the Egyptians don't want Palestinians.
Murray's doing the exact same thing on the other side here. Ceded nothing, pure Israel propaganda. I mean, he's taking a Israel stance, but his arguments at the very least are much more historically and factually based or grounded. When I say not like based like Austin, but like they're based on reality.
In their country. So the only solution is a regional one, but I'm afraid in this region there are very few people who care about the Palestinians.
Okay.
If you believe a genocide is happening, why wouldn't you open the Egyptian borders? No state is better than genocide. Because none of these guys actually believe a genocide is happening. They all know it's a ridiculous argument. None of them actually believe it.
In this region, there are very few people who care about the Palestinians.
Okay, Douglas, you had the first word. Cenk, I'll give you the last one. I want to preface it by saying that it's been reported today, and this is coming from Hamas's statements, apparently, picked up by newspapers in America, that there was a new hostage deal offered, which was that Hamas were asked, will you release the 40 women and children you still have captive in return for a week-long ceasefire, and they apparently have rejected that. So I think that when we talk about behaviour on both sides, the mere fact that there are still 40 women and children in the clutches of Hamas, and God knows what they're doing to those poor women, that should be noted too. There are still innocent people being held in the most appalling conditions by Hamas, and that is also motivating Israel's response. But I'll give you the last word, Cenk.
Yeah. So I wish to God that they would release those women and children. I think it's immoral to keep them. It's wrong in every way. But Israel kills more than 40 women and children every single day, all completely innocent.
Get 'em.
Look, even if you take IDF's outlandish numbers of 7,000 Hamas fighters killed, that means their kill ratio of civilians to fighters is still worse than Hamas's. And they have now killed 20 times the number of civilians that...
Just as a quick heads up for our boring international law cucks, soldiers that are killed during a terrorist attack are not valid targets. You cannot kill soldiers in a terrorist attack and say, oh, well, look, this, they were soldiers that were killed, so it's fine. That's not how that works. You're not allowed to do that.
Hamas has killed. So when Douglas talks about driving them into Egypt or Jordan, that's just ethnic cleansing. They live in Gaza. So if you push them out and they say, well, you're all Arabs anyway, why don't you just go live somewhere else in the region? That's the definition of ethnic cleansing. That is outrageous. And he says it blithely, with no concern, because Palestinian lives don't matter. And you ask them, hey, how many Palestinians can you possibly kill? And he never answered the question. So the reality is, you cannot kill your way out of this conflict. The more that they kill, the more. What do you think that the Palestinians are going to feel? What would you feel if your family was butchered, if their heads were crushed by a bomb that was dropped on a building, if they were lit on fire by the bombs that were dropped? What would you do? You'd fight back the rest of your life. And then they are permanently occupied. And now Netanyahu says he was proud that he prevented a Palestinian state and that he will continue to prevent a Palestinian state. He is not a partner for peace, or he profits from war. His whole career is about perpetuating war, not just to murder Palestinians, but it keeps Israel unsafe for eternity. So the whole point of Israel is to be a safe haven for oppressed Jews throughout the world. It cannot be a safe haven as long as you're imprisoning 5 million Palestinians and saying, we are never, ever going to let you go. And if you ever dare oppose us, we will kill your women and children. It's disgusting.
They're not in prison.
It's not what Israel was meant to do.
I'd urge you again, Cenk.
Wait, okay. Cenk didn't get anywhere near as explosive as you guys said he would.
Leave your bedroom sometime and come to this region and see it for yourself.
Hey, I thought I was supposed to get the last word. This idiot's talking about bedrooms.
The Palestinians
hey, do you care about the babies? You care about the women? Douglas, why don't you admit you don't care about dead Palestinian babies, dead Palestinian women, because you don't mind it. Israel. You say right or wrong, no matter how many people they have murdered, no matter how many kids they have crushed to death, you don't care because you don't care about human beings. All you want is some sort of warmongering Israeli state, U.S. state, etc.
All right, listen. I've got to wrap it up. I've got to say, listen. I think we actually had a very. I found
You're
it
super evil. You don't mind the deaths of all those thousands of people.
Let's not descend.
Evil warmongering.
Jake, let's not descend into this. I actually think, with a few exceptions, we had a good debate there, right? I understand passions run high. I think it's a shame whenever I do these debates when it gets ad hominem in the way that it has occasionally tonight. But I do think we've also had some really smart takes from both sides about what is going on and where we need to get to. I think we can all agree on one thing. We all want to end up with peace here somehow. It's going to be horrendously difficult.
We do.
It's very complicated.
Piers, that's not true.
But I do think I don't actually think, knowing both of you as I do, I don't believe the charge that neither of you care is true. I think you do care. about all the lives that
it's
are being
just a
lost.
lazy smear. Of
And I think
I don't
that
think he cares
we
about
should
those
start
lives
from an
1%.
acceptance we all
I think he's a
care, and then
monster.
try and be more constructive. But listen, I thank you both for joining me. I wish you both a Merry Christmas. I'll
Thank
see you
you,
both,
Piers.
no doubt, in the new year.
Merry
and I thank
Christmas
you both.
to you, Piers,
I thank
and
you
to
both for
Cenk.
your regular contributions to the show, particularly since this war started, because I really do appreciate it, and I want to hear both sides. And I think you both articulate your cases extremely powerfully. So thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.